And if you don't know where you're sitting, I will let you know.
Wait, I think
Who did I move? Who did I move?
where am I sitting?
Stadig. I moved Stadig. You are a Bondurant. No, you're at Grace. Yes, so you're number 17. So you're between Jamarian and Levi. And your program should have your name circled on it.
And Mom, where's my binder? Does it matter where you sit?
I don't have your binder. Did you leave it?
Oh, it's right there.
Oh, I do have your binder.
That's what I was.
You want to sit here? There are 3 seats. Unless, are y'all saving these?
Yeah, Lauren Hall.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, but I need mine. Can you take mine out?
I actually have no idea who I am. I forgot.
Shh, don't let everybody see.
I forgot.
Okay, close it up. Yes. Wayne Hills YouTube. Do you want this, Carla? Sealed envelope. It's the reveal. You don't have to use it. Okay, make sure, can I see this? That you get one of these at the front door. If you would like to write down answers, you don't have to. But if you would like to, it's kind of the program and it has answers. Okay, can you go do that now? Oh, you don't have to. Okay, this is a mic check. Check, 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 check. Check, 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 check. Is that good? We're done? Wonderful. All righty, welcome to Faces of History. This is what, John Smith? This is Miss Woodworth's what? Favorite event of the CC school year. I love Faces of History because I love hearing stories. And these students have worked so hard to do a research paper on their character. I'm very excited about it. We have been studying ancient history in classical conversations this year. And so all of these characters come from ancient history. In fact, if you notice on your program, we only go up to 800 years after Christ with the death of our last character. So very ancient. It's very exciting. The boys and girls have worked hard. They each have a costume, a paper, and a centerpiece. And they will tell you about their centerpiece. So boys and girls, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. I'll just give you a little instruction here. Okay, so this child is not going first, Lydia. We got somebody cutting you in line. Okay, good. Okay, we got somebody cutting in line. And then we'll go first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and we'll take an intermission. And then we'll do the rest of them. So this is what you're going to do. You guys need to demonstrate. Here, I'll come over here. So you're going to walk up the stage when it's your turn. I'm going to call your name, Esther. No, that's not her name. What is her name? Stella. Stella, we're going to walk up the stairs here. And you're going to get behind the podium and read your paper. And when you're done, you're going to look at the audience. You're going to say, "Who am I?" And then you can pick 3 different people. If they get it wrong, you can pick another else. And then you just tell people if 3 people can't get it right. And then you say, my centerpiece is the one with the blah, blah, blah. And you tell us all what your centerpiece is. And then, girls and boys, you're going to walk over here by the pyramid. You see the pyramid way over there? And Mr. Yoder is going to take your photo. And then you're going to go sit over there. And what's going to happen is when I call the next person, everybody's going to stand up, and you're going to move over 1 seat and sit down. And if it's really stupid, then we won't do it anymore. But that was my brilliant idea. Okay, so Miss Lizzie, you're right here, sweetie, next to William. And you have a program even. So I didn't give y'all pens, but I did think you might want to see the program. Okay, I could pull it away. So let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for, golly, the privilege of homeschooling and the ability to just teach these children how to write, how to read, how to explore, how to learn about you and your world and the history of humans and how you've interacted with us since day one. Lord, I pray that this time will be refreshing. I pray that you'll help the children to not be nervous as they come up to stage, that they would just know we are here to enjoy their story. And I pray that you'll help us to all learn something new today. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, do I need to make any more announcements? You don't like my mic? You're going to give me a different one? That's fine. All righty. So we're going to start with Miss Lucy Smith. If you turn your program over, she's actually number 14. Number 14, she's the daughter of Jeremy and Jody Smith, and her character was roughly born in around 100 years before Christ. So I can see your pretty face. If you can't see their face, they can't see you. Can you see Helena's face? Okay. Okay, Kelly, tell us when we're ready. We're not ready yet. Wait, she's not ready. Miss Kelly. Oh, good. Much better.
Okay. A man of valiance. A coward dies 1,000 times before his death, but the valiant taste of death but once. I was born on July 12th, 100 BC, to a noble Roman family. Because my family was not wealthy, I was educated at home by a tutor. I was a great student and became a superior writer and an orator, as well as a skilled horseman. At age 16, my father died, leaving me to take care of my family. This began my rising to a powerful position within Rome, and eventually becoming a skilled soldier. I was the head of the army during the Gallic Wars, where I became popular with the people in Rome by writing detailed accounts of my accomplishments. I defeated my enemies in Rome during the civil war that followed. Finally, I helped unite the Egyptian Empire and conquered the Middle East on my way home. I returned to Rome to rule for 10 years as a dictator until I was viciously ambushed by both foes and friends. From a poor noble family to the dictator of Rome, my life was one of a kind. By the time I fought the Gallic Wars, I was an accomplished leader. I was also an excellent example. My soldiers devoted themselves to me as a military genius. The first fight in the Gallic Wars was the Swiss Alp tribe. because they wanted more farmland and to be away from their neighbors, the Germans. My soldiers were incredibly talented fighters because they kept close and had well-ordered lines. The tribe had to cross a river which was part of the Roman territory to get to their new land. So I tricked them by saying, "Come back in 2 weeks." And 2 weeks later, I had destroyed the bridge to get across the river and even built a 16-foot tall, 19-mile-long wall to prevent them from crossing the river. This battle had begun 10 years of the Gallic Wars. During this time, I became famous in Rome for writing detailed accounts of my accomplishments. The Gallic Wars eventually ended with the siege of the town Alicia. In the end, I built 3 walls around the city, and the best Gallic commander finally surrendered, leaving me the winner of the Gallic Wars. After the Gallic Wars, it was time for me to return to Rome, but I knew I had enemies there. My best ally, a man by the name of Crassus, was dead. Another leader, Pompey, was jealous of my popularity and sad because his wife and my daughter, Julia, had died in childbirth. Some in Rome wanted Pompey to rule, while others wanted me. After Julia sadly died, both of us wanted to lead Rome. I did not want a civil war because I didn't want to see my countrymen fight. But on June 10th, 49 BC, I led my troops across a slight river, which was called the Rubicon, into Rome, and the civil war started. Some people today even use the phrase, the crossing of the Rubicon, to mean making a decision they will not turn back. Pompey and I fought a civil war for 9 months. Even though Pompey had been a great warrior, I defeated him on August 9th, 48 BC at Pharsalus in Greece. After losing the Battle of Pharsalus, Pompey fled to Egypt. I followed him and arrived 3 days after Pompey. Egypt was in a civil war already between siblings Cleopatra and their teen king Ptolemy XIII. King Ptolemy wanted my support, so he killed Pompey to gain my favor and presented his bodiless head to me. Cleopatra, on the other hand, silently and secretly snuck into a rolled-up carpet to see me while I was being held captive in the palace because she wanted help for the throne. I took Cleopatra's side and settled the civil war. I stayed in Egypt traveling the Nile with Cleopatra. Before I left, Cleopatra gave birth to my only son, and we named him Ptolemy XIV. I headed back to Rome, squashing rebellions on the way. Rome welcomed me, and I ruled for 10 years and even expanded Rome. The people proclaimed me dictator for life, and this worried the Senate because it threatened the Roman Republic's idea of limiting the power of one man. Dictators were supposed to be for emergencies only, not for life. In 44 BC, when I was 55 years old, the senators stabbed me to death, one by one. I fought bravely until I caught sight of Brutus, who had been my good friend. I died on the Senate floor with my cloak covering me in shame. I lived a short but eventful life. I rose to fame and power as a young man fighting in the army and eventually led the Romans to success in the Gallic Wars. I defeated my enemies in Rome during the Civil War. I successfully aided Cleopatra in uniting the Egyptian Empire and spent years ruling Rome as its dictator. Because of Rome's fear of being led by a dictator, I was tragically assassinated. I fought until I was overtaken by my enemies and one who I thought was my friend. Who am I? Grace. Yeah. My centerpiece is the one over with the helmet and the map and that stuff by the basket.
no limit. All things are possible. Who you are is limited by who you think you are. An Egyptian proverb. Greetings. Allow me to introduce myself. I was one of just a handful of female kings throughout history. As impossible as it sounds, I was the Pharaoh of Egypt. This is how it happened. Fortunately, I belong to the golden age of Egypt, the 18th dynasty, when Egypt became stronger than ever, full of sophistication and wealth. I am sure you will be extremely interested to learn of my background, which I will tell of in just a moment. Indeed, it is a tale worth telling. But the greatest thing that happened to me was having the chance to be the honored ruler of Egypt. I was a great and successful pharaoh because of one brave step that I took. This is my story. I was born in 1530 BC into the household of my father, the great Pharaoh Thutmose. I lived a comfortable and peaceful life as a young girl. My father, who had no royal blood, had become pharaoh because he was a trusted general, and the pharaoh before him had no son to become king after him. So this pharaoh, Amenhotep, had anointed my father to be the next pharaoh after him. My mother, Ahamos, was a royal, and therefore I have royal blood in my veins. When I was a young teenager, perhaps 13 or 14, I hesitantly married Thutmose II, my half-brother. My new husband was not royal, and because of this, it was my responsibility to marry him to keep the royal blood in the family. Sadly, because I was a girl, I would not wield the throne, although I was the only one of royal blood and the eldest child. The injustice was great. However, there is still more to my story than just this. These are the twists and turns of my life. In about 1501 BC, I did something completely unexpected. When I was 29 years old, I declared myself king and pharaoh of Egypt. This is how it happened. I never gave birth to a son for my husband, as was hoped. Instead, one of his non-royal wives gave birth to a son, naming him Thutmose III, who would one day be my husband's successor. In 1518 BC, my father, Thutmose I, died, and my husband became the new pharaoh. Sadly, my husband and half-brother, Thutmose II, was a sickly and weak man and died after just 15 years of occupying the throne. His son and chosen successor, Thutmose III, was not capable of ruling the great Egypt because he was only a child. I became regent, a person who led the country while the actual ruler is maturing. Women were allowed to be regent, but not pharaoh. During this time, I acted as pharaoh. I took taxes and led 2 military campaigns against Palestine and Nubia, demonstrating my leadership ability. After being regent for 7 years, I decided it was time to become pharaoh, a thing not many women would have dared to do. It was not customary for women to rule, but I was the rightful ruler by blood and standing. I had proven my ability to rule our great country after being regent for 7 years. Despite all this, many people were not confident in me as the pharaoh. So to prove my authority, I began dressing as a man. I put on a false beard and even adopted a new throne name, Matkare. I knew if I looked like the pharaoh, people would begin respecting me as such. I had an amazing reign, full of prosperity and accomplishment. Over time, most Egyptians did accept me as pharaoh. Perhaps my crowning endeavor was the expedition I sent to Punt, an ancient land in southern Africa, when I was about 35 years old. I sent my ships out with the purpose of exploring Punt and bringing back evidence of what they found. After many months of waiting, my ships finally returned. With them came many wonders, such as a giraffe, lapis lazuli, leopards, cheetahs, gold, ebony, ivory, and even people from Punt. I assure you, there was much more than these. I also made several expeditions to other countries because I had decided to keep the pace and build foreign relationships. However, the expedition to Punt was by far the largest. I also constructed a beautiful temple that remained for millennia after me, called Deir el-Bari. It was a symbol to show the story of the pharaohs. When I was about 51 years old, which at that time was considered old, I died in the 22nd year of my reign. My nephew, Thutmose III, who I had been regent for, became king after I died. He was a royal warrior. Evidently, he was very angry that I had ever become pharaoh. He took my name off the monuments. He attempted to erase all knowledge that I was pharaoh by erasing all memory of me. He took my name off the monuments that I had constructed and destroyed all proof that I had ever accomplished anything as pharaoh. I was so angry with him because of this injustice. How could he go behind my back and ruin all I had worked so hard to accomplish? Even so, a couple of clues remain, and they are leading archaeologists to discover who I truly was. This is the story of my magnificent reign and the incredible puzzle that stands before archaeologists and historians. Even though my life was completely different from modern times, I still led an incredible example for the whole world. When I declared myself the most honored ruler of Egypt, I became the first successful female pharaoh of Egypt. The expedition to Punt was a great success, although it was difficult. And because of Thutmose III's evil deeds, historians have not known about me for thousands of years. Personally, I think my greatest and most lasting accomplishment was demonstrating that women are as capable as men and able to lead even the great country of Egypt. I was so proud. Thutmose III, who was determined to put an end to my memory, could not erase all the wonderful things that happened during my time as pharaoh because of the great impact I made. This is my amazing story, and I hope it encourages others to not limit what they think they are capable of. Who am I? Okay. I was Hatshepsut. For my centerpiece, I made the temple Dar el-Bari, so it's over there.
Everyone stand up and move over one seat. This way. One seat. Go over there, Mr. Clear. Yeah, that was perfect. Okay. Ooh, yeah, there we go. All right. Next up is Stella Hankey. Stella is the daughter of Seth and Melissa Hankey. You can come up now. And her character was born around 1400 BC.
The brave prophetess. I was born into slavery, but I always stood up for the truth and what was right, even when others were afraid. During the time of Joseph, my people, the Israelites, were shepherds roaming freely around beyond the Nile River. But the powerful Pharaoh became afraid of all of us, so he made us his slaves. We fashioned bricks out of mud and straw for building temples, tombs, and pyramids for Pharaoh. It was hard work. The wicked Pharaoh became afraid again because the number of Israelites kept increasing even though we were slaves. Terribly, Pharaoh commanded that all baby boys be thrown into the Nile River to drown. Although my parents loved each other, my father Amram and my mother Yocheved decided to separate so that no more boys would be born and killed. Following his lead, many of the other Israelites divorced their wives too. But I was not happy with them separating. So I challenged my father, solemnly cautioning, "Papa, your action is worse than Pharaoh's. He wants to murder boys, but you are declaring no girls will be born either." My father was touched by my wisdom and remarried my mother. Following his lead, the other Israelites remarried their wives too. At my parents' wedding, I sang and danced, praising the Lord, who helped me to be bold and stand up for what was right. My bravery was seen when I watched over my little brother among the swaying reeds during the dark of night. When I was 6 years old, I prophesied that my mom would give birth to a baby boy who would free the Israelites from slavery. When Moses was born, the house was filled with light, and my dad announced, "My daughter, your prophecy is coming true." But my mother, Yocheved, knew the baby was in danger, so we made a basket out of reeds, tar, and mud, and lined it with soft grass. At twilight, we quietly crept through the fields with the basket and Moses. We gently set my baby brother into the basket and placed it softly in the water. My mother silently crept away, leaving me to watch over Moses. In the morning, I noticed the princess of Egypt and her maids walking to the river to bathe. Suddenly, the princess stopped. I gaped at her as she pointed to the basket. Her maids, who were dressed beautifully, waded into the water and gently picked up the basket and brought it back to the princess. She opened the basket and stared at the innocent baby, helplessly wailing in the basket. The princess took pity on him and carefully took him out of the basket, singing him soothing songs. She declared, "I will name him Moses," which means drawn from the water. Then I crept out of my hiding place among the reeds and walked up to the princess. I boldly suggested, "I can find a nurse for him, Your Majesty." The princess told me to find one, so I raced to my house to find my mother. Quickly, my mother followed me to where the princess was. She gladly took her baby and went to the palace to nurse him for the princess. When he was weaned, the princess adopted him, and my mother went back to our house. I was glad that I was brave for my brother's sake. Because I was a prophetess, I believed God would free our people from slavery. So I brought my tambourine to sing songs to God when we escaped out of Egypt. Many years after Moses ran to Midian, he returned to Egypt and demanded that Pharaoh let our people go. Over the next few weeks, many plagues fell on the Egyptians. Finally, Pharaoh forced all the Israelites to get out of Egypt. Immediately, I told all the women to bring their drums because God had told me that he was going to perform a glorious miracle. After traveling for a while, we came to the Red Sea. Suddenly, we heard wheels and chariots in the distance. Pharaoh had changed his mind. He had sent his ruthless army after us. The Red Sea was before us. The army was behind us. We didn't know what to do. People around me who were panicking started to yell at Moses and Aaron for taking us out there. Then the Lord thundered, "Moses, pick up your staff and raise it over the sea." So Moses raised his staff over the sea, and the waters parted. After we walked through, Pharaoh's army charged after us, but the waters crashed over him, and they all died. I grabbed my tambourine and started singing a song to God, and all the women joined me. I sang, "I will sing unto the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and rider he has thrown into the sea." I believed that God would save us from our enemies and free us from slavery. So I jubilantly sang a song of joy to God. I was born into slavery, but I was bold and brave and believed God would free our people. Who am I? Yes, I'm Miriam. And my centerpiece is the basket with the baby in it.
Yay. Very nice. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay. All right, let's try this again. Everybody stand up. Move over one seat. And I will announce the next character is Noah Hankey. So, Mr. Jack, you have to come over here. There you go. Helena, you might need to help, sit right there. Right next to Wesley Claire. All right, this is Noah Hankey. He is also the son of Seth and Melissa Hankey. And his character was born around 1391 BC.
Rescued from the river. What is impossible with man is possible with God. Luke 18:27. About 100 years before I was born, my ancestor Joseph was unwillingly dragged to Egypt. Joseph's large family, who traveled to Egypt during a famine, were shepherds in the land of Goshen. Generously, God blessed God blessed the Israelites, and they multiplied in number. I was born in Egypt. I tried to rescue my people, the Israelites, from slavery, but ended up running for my life to Midian. Because I killed a ruthless slave driver, When I returned to Egypt, God sent the plagues and rescued the Israelites through me. When I was born in Egypt, there was a decree that all the baby boys be drowned in the Nile River. But I was rescued. Pharaoh feared the Hebrew slaves. He thought that the slaves would increase in number and one day take the throne. So he had a solution. He would drown all the baby boys in the Nile River. I was born in Egypt during this time, into the tribe of Levi. My mother, Jochebed, hid me for 3 months, but could not hide me forever. She said to my sister Miriam, I cannot hide him any longer, but he must live. My mother had a brilliant idea. Incredibly, she and my sister fashioned a waterproof basket, which was made out of papyrus reeds and was covered with tar and pitch. One night, they crept down to the river, found a safe spot, and placed the basket in the river. Among the reeds, Miriam hid to keep watch over me. Early in the morning, Pharaoh's daughter arrived at the river to bathe. She importantly discovered the basket with me inside and felt sorry for me. She wanted to protect me. My sister plunged out into the river and bowed before the princess. Do you need a nurse? Miriam asked. I know someone who can nurse the baby. Pharaoh's daughter answered yes. My sister dashed back and told my mom. The princess adopted me and rescued me from the river. I grew up in the palace, but didn't forget the God of the Israelites. I tried to rescue them from slavery when I was 40 years old. I noticed an Egyptian slave driver who was beating an Israelite slave. I was filled with fury, looked in all directions, and murdered the slave driver. Under the sand, I buried him in a shallow grave. Ecstatically, the slave told his friends how I had saved his life. Word spread quickly. Pharaoh heard about this and declared, he must be killed. Quickly, I fled to Midian and ended up staying for 40 years. I married a Midianite, had 2 baby boys, and was a shepherd there. When I was 80 years old, I was tending my father-in-law's sheep, and when I spotted a brilliantly burning bush. Take off your sandals, for where you stand is holy ground. The Lord declared, you will set the Israelites free. I exclaimed, I stutter when I speak, and I walk slowly. God declared, I will send your brother Aaron, and he will be your voice. Then the Lord shouted, go! I had tried to rescue the Israelites from slavery and failed, but God still had plans to rescue his people. God sent 10 plagues and rescued the Israelites from slavery through me. Back in Egypt, the old Pharaoh died, but the new Pharaoh was even more cruel. Aaron and I rushed to Pharaoh and declared, let my people go. Stubbornly, Pharaoh refused. God sent 10 plagues to release the Israelites. Since the Lord told me to wake up early, stand on the riverbank, and wait for Pharaoh, I did what the Lord commanded me. I turned the river into blood, and God sent frogs, flies, and lice, and they swarmed into the houses of the Egyptians, but nothing touched the Israelites. Blistering boils broke out on humans and cattle, and many were killed. Hail fell from the sky, destroying crops and harming humans. Locusts descended down in swarms and ate up the plants of the earth. Over the land of Egypt, the sun stopped shining for 3 days. The Egyptians couldn't see their own hands in front of their faces, but the Hebrews had light. The 10th plague was the most devastating. God told the Israelites, kill a sheep and smear the blood of it on your doorframe. Every Israelite did, but Pharaoh wouldn't listen. At midnight, the angel of death passed by through all of Egypt, and everyone who had the lamb's blood on their doorframe was safe, but whoever did not, their firstborn son died. Pharaoh's son tragically died. Pharaoh, who was devastated, told the Israelites to leave his country. Joyfully, we left. Before Pharaoh could change his mind, God sent the plagues and rescued the Israelites through me. Incredibly, God rescued me from the river of Egypt when I was 3 months old. When I grew up, I tirelessly tried to rescue the people of Israel. of Israel, but I failed. God spoke through a burning bush and told me to travel to Egypt because he was planning to rescue the Israelites. After I returned to Egypt, God sent the terribly devastating plagues and rescued my people from slavery. The most significant thing I learned was that I couldn't rescue the people of Israel on my own, but God, who works miracles, did it through me. Graciously, God rescued me from the waters, and then he rescued the Israelites from the waters of the Red Sea. Who am I? You. I don't know, just one of you. Yes. I'm
Moses. What?
And my centerpiece is the snake shaped like a rod.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was fabulous, Noah. Noah is Moses, and his sister Stella was Miriam. What a great pair they make. Awesome. Some of you are not familiar with our Essentials program, and if you'll notice, you can hear in the introduction, we state the 3 topics, and then we cover the 3 topics in a paragraph, and then we state the 3 topics at the end. So I know when we're getting ready to end, when I know we've done 3 different topics. Okay, everybody stand up and move this way. Next up is Anna Fencer. She is the daughter of Brian and Ceci Fencer, and her character was born around 1370 BC.
The greatest mysterious queen in Egypt. Was my life as mysterious as people think? I was a famous woman who was born into royalty, became the most beautiful, powerful woman ruler, helped change the political Egyptian religion, and became influential ruler. Amazingly, my life is still one of the greatest mysteries in Egyptian history. My name means a beautiful woman has come. Scientists were not looking for me, but evidence came that I existed. My stunning bust was found in 1912 by an Egyptian archaeologist. Today, this relic is displayed in the Berlin Egyptian Museum in Germany. There's many beliefs about my origin. Some people believe that I was an alien because of how I was depicted in Egyptian wall drawings, while others suspect I was a foreigner or even a Hebrew. All Egyptologists agree that I came from an elite family. I could have been the daughter of Amenhotep III or even his wife. Growing up, I had a tutor and a wet nurse called Tai. It is very likely that I grew up knowing my future husband. I changed my name from Hathorka after marrying King Amenhotep IV. Researchers think that I could have been as early as 10 or as old as 16 when the wedding occurred. Even though I was just one of the king's wives, I was also the favorite one. I gave birth to 6 daughters. 3 of my daughters died during childhood. King Amenhotep IV, who was exalted, was second choice to the Egyptian crown, but he became the pharaoh after his older brother died. He was a pharaoh during the 18th dynasty, which lasted from 1550 to 1295 BC. Akhenaten IV believed there was one god, the sun god. He called him Aten. The king even changed his name to Akhenaten to honor his god, and his wife's name to another meaning, which means beauties of Aten. Some scientists think that Akhenaten's faith may have been influenced by the incredible history of the Exodus during the Red Sea crossing. I had 6 daughters. All of them had the word Aten in their name. 3 of my daughters were born in Thebes and 3 in Amarna. In year 4 of my husband's reign, he started and enforced the worship of Aten in Egypt. He fashioned multiple temples to the new and only god Aten. To erect the new temples, he used a new technique in which the bricks were lighter and smaller so the temples could be built faster. During his kingdom, a lot of other gods' temples were brutally destroyed, and many idols were crushed. Many Egyptians opposed him. The king Akhenaten also moved the capital from Thebes to Amarna. He thought the sun would rise in Amarna. It made perfect sense for a new religion. In year 6 of our reign, around 1344 BC, I joined my husband in an unprecedented, expensive Ornette festival in the worship of Aten. People were not happy with it because it was not the proper time where they normally worship their other gods. In Egyptian hieroglyphics, I was always portrayed with a really long neck, wide hips, and skinny legs, which were rather long. My head was shaped like an oval, almost like my skull was longer. Always by my husband and children in private settings with the sun god with the sun god Aten, shining his rays of blessings on our family. In year 12 of our reign, my famous stunning buste was created. It was fashioned by Thutmose, who was the king's sculptor. In 1348, my first daughter, Makataten, is mentioned for the last time, as some Egyptologists have found some drawings of a child funeral, showing that perhaps one of my daughters may have died at age 10. Shortly after her death, there was a 6-minute solar eclipse. Egypt was darkened. People were afraid. People didn't trust the sun god anymore. After 13 years of power, King Akhenaten died. Following his death, most of Aten's temples were destroyed, and the bricks were used to build temples to the multiple gods. His vandalized tomb has been found. His mummy skull was smashed, and the gold from his face mask was all gone. Some historians say my husband died long before I did, and I moved the capital back to Thebes to protect Egypt from raiders. I was reluctant to give the throne to my stepson, King Tut, who is very sickly. In order to have another child, I tried to remarry, but on the way to the wedding, my future husband was brutally killed by some Egyptians. Finally, I died without a male child, giving King Tut the opportunity to become king. Sadly, King Tut died early because of his many health issues. When he died, his tomb was not nearly ready. Because Amenhotep IV and I were so despised for changing the Egyptian religion, our colossal tombs were stripped from their jewels and placed to King Tut's tomb. There is clear evidence that King Tut's ornate coffin belonged to another pharaoh. Some scientists even go as far to say it was supposed to be mine, and my name was erased from it, and King Tut's body was placed in it instead. Today, no one really knows where my body is. Could my body have been one of the thousands of mummies that belonged to a collector or gone to victors? Perhaps it became ground up for paint or potion. Whatever the case, my mysterious life was not a boring life. Not many women have the power to change a religion, be portrayed as the most beautiful woman ruler in Egypt, and sometimes an alien. I'm still the most mysterious queen in Egypt. Who am I? You. Yes, I'm Nefertiti. And my centerpiece is over there. It's the person worshiping a sun disk, which is supposed to be Aten. Yeah.
Awesome. Queen Nefertiti. Did I say that right? Nefertiti? Queen Nefertiti. Very fun. Okay, everybody stand up. Move a seat to the left. And then next up is Lillian Novotny. She's the daughter of Chris and Whitney Cole Novotny. And her character was born somewhere around 1200 BC.
If you honor God, God will honor you. There is no limit to what you can accomplish as long as you care enough to give the credit to God. As a young, fearless girl who then grew into a wise Israelite leader and ultimately became renowned in a song of worship offered to God, I testify before you now. When the Lord speaks, listen, trust, obey. He will provide. Although little is known about my young life, the following details are possibilities of situations that would develop the character my adult life would reveal. I was a fearless, faith-filled, and feisty female. My brothers taught me how to hunt, tend sheep, and use a bow and arrow. I am an Israelite under the control of the ruthless Canaanite king Jabin. The Lord gave my people into the Canaanite control because we disobeyed and did evil in his sight. The Lord is my closest companion. I have loved the Lord God of Israel my whole life, and I know he loves me too. He talks to me often, and I even have vivid dreams that show me more of him and his ways. He protects me from harm, and I have learned to depend on the Lord for wisdom in all situations. He faithfully speaks to me in clear, gentle ways, like the time I noticed that one of my sheep was in trouble. I had fallen asleep, but then felt a clear tap on my shoulder. When I turned, I saw my little lamb in danger of falling off a jagged cliff, and ran to save her just in time. No one was behind me that could have tapped my shoulder, but I knew it was the Lord my God speaking to me and keeping me from danger. He often gives me truth and direction. Well, evidently word had gotten out about my father's young, fearless, faith-filled girl because the elders of the village started talking to him about me. My best years as a woman came quickly as I worked busily attending to my duties at home and secretly anticipating the day that I might be a bride. Every day while attending those busy duties, I feel as if I'm being watched by my brother's friend Lapidoth. It feels strange to be noticed so intently, but after a few months, I come to understand why. Lapidoth has asked for my hand in marriage. He is a wonderful man, and after a time, we are married. Eventually, the elders from the village who often came to speak with my father about me came back. They said that Shamgar, the third judge of Israel, has asked to see me. Lapidoth and I journey to the city gate where Shamgar presides as judge of Israel. He asks me about my life, my faith, and my family. I tell him of the visions I see, the voice of God I hear, and the value of prayer and worship upon my heart and life. He shares with me his vision from God, me, serving the Lord and our people as the fourth judge of Israel after him. He hands me his ring, symbolizing the honor I am receiving. I am overwhelmed, yet ready to serve the way the Lord wants me to. 15 years later, I receive word that Shamgar has passed on to be with God in heaven. As I pack up my things, Lapidoth and our children prepare to support me in my calling as judge. I set up court between Ramah and Bethel, where I find a beautiful palm tree, which causes me to rejoice. I know it's the perfect place to preside and judge the cases my fellow Israelites will bring to me. It will be a busy but blessed time to be a woman and judge for Israel. As a wise Israelite leader, I listen, learn, and lead. Many come to me for advice. Their cries of misery reach my ears day after day. I seek the Lord on their behalf as they continue to be oppressed by the Canaanites, who are led by King Jabin's commander, Sisera. After having a vision, I send for a man named Barak, who is a skilled warrior in Israel. The Lord commands me to tell him to take 10,000 men from Zebulun and Naphtali up to Mount Tabor, where the Lord will lure Sisera and his army of 900 chariots. There the Lord will give the cruel Canaanites into the Israelites' hands. Upon hearing this command, Barak hesitates, pleading with me that he will not go unless I fight fearlessly by his side. Saddened at his lack of enthusiasm over the word given by the Lord our God, I tell him I will go, but when Sisera is defeated, it will be a woman who defeats him. I gather forces, go into battle, and give praise. I send edicts to gather men from Zebulun and Naphtali, for they are the only ones willing to join us in battle. Barak and I then lead the 10,000 men across the Kishon River up to Mount Tabor. Sisera and his army are coming from Hazor. The Canaanite army arrived in the night with 900 iron chariots. Barak finally gained his composure, confidence, and courage, and with one unified voice and unwavering determination, the Israelites charged into battle. The fighting was fierce, and many were slain. Yet a miracle arose. It appeared as if God himself had entered the battle. Using the Kishon River as his sword, he struck down the iron chariots with waves of fury while drowning Canaanite soldiers in his wake. When the water subsided, it was clear that the Lord meant what he said. He delivered the Canaanites into the Israelites' hands. After 20 years of suffering, the long-awaited battle was over, just like that. Panting, one of the Israelite men came to Barak and I, reporting that Sisera himself had escaped on foot and fled towards the plains of Zanim. Giving each other a knowing look, Barak and I understood that Sisera was headed toward Jael the Kenite. Barak took off immediately in that direction, while I stayed back and prayed. God assured us complete victory, and I trusted him to accomplish it. I prayed for his will to be done and for the help and wisdom for those involved in accomplishing it. Barak, looking intently for Sisera, found Jael standing outside her tent. When he had asked her if she had seen him, she quickly ushered Barak to have a look in her tent. Jael had heard of the terrible things that Sisera had done and pretended to help him. She offered Sisera a nourishing cup of milk. Feeling grateful, tired, and safe, Sisera had immediately fallen asleep. Seeing that he was in a state of deep, exhausted sleep, Jael had grabbed the tent peg and hammer and forcefully drove the peg through Sisera's temple, killing him. Barak, amazed that it was done, sent word back to me. Upon hearing the wonderful news, I immediately led the Israelite soldiers in a song of worship praising God, who used the stars of heaven to fight and the torrent of the Kishon River to avenge those who came against his beloved. This song tells of me, arising as a mother in Israel, and speaks of the most blessed woman Jael, who killed Sisera with a tent peg. After much rejoicing, the Canaanite king Jabin was sent into exile. Gathering, going, and giving praise, I thanked God for his faithfulness and the peace he assured us that ended up lasting for 40 years. As a young, fearless girl who grew into a wise Israelite leader and ultimately became renowned in a song of worship offered to God, I again testify before you now. If you honor God, God will honor you. The Israelites honored God, and he gave us victory. Sisera dishonored God, and now he's dead. When the Lord speaks, listen, trust, obey. He will provide. My life, leadership, and song testify of this. Who am I? Ella? Yes. And my centerpiece is over there. It's the tent peg and hammer.
Wow. Yay. Judge Deborah. That was awesome. Thank you, Lillian. All right, everybody stand up. Move to the left. Gives them a little chance to stretch, doesn't it? Okay, next up is Chloe Aiken. Chloe is the daughter of Joshua and Claire Aiken, and her character was born somewhere around 1300 BC.
Blessed is she among women in tents. I was related by marriage to Moses' family. My husband, Heber, separated himself from the rest of his family and moved near a terebinth tree, near Zanan, which is beside Kedesh. Our home was a very simple tent containing all of the supplies we needed for daily life, some of which were blanket, tent pegs, hammer, and a drinking bowl. My legacy was most known for fulfilling a prophecy. Deborah, the judge of Israel, was asked at the time by Barak, the commander of Israel's army, to go with him to fight. Deborah said, "I will surely go with you. Nevertheless, there will be no glory for you in the journey. For you are taking for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hands of a woman." Sisera fled into my house because there was a war going on and there was peace between Sisera's king and my husband. I invited him in and covered him with a blanket. When Sisera asked for milk, When Sisera asked for water, I gave him milk instead. After this, Sisera fell asleep. When I knew that Sisera was fast asleep, I took a tent peg and hammered it into his temple, killing him. After this, not only did I fulfill the prophecy the Lord gave to Deborah, saving Israel, but after this, Deborah and Barak sang a song giving glory to God and mentioning me. Who am I? Yes? Mm-hmm.
Yael or JL, I don't know. You probably said it right, whoever. What's your centerpiece, Chloe? Okay, that's fine. Very good. Thank you. All right. I guess stand up and move to the left. Next up is Josiah Woodworth. Josiah is the son of John and myself, Woodworth. And his character was born around 1040 BC.
Oh, yeah, that's right here. Wait. A courageous kid to a conquering king. I was the most intrepid youngest brother you could ever have. I was particularly an important shepherd boy who loved my sheep so much that I would kill a lion and a bear to save them. I was born in Bethlehem, and out of my 10 siblings, I was picked by God to be the second king of a great nation. I was righteous, noble, and victorious. Some might claim that I was one of the greatest kings that ever lived. That was before I let my sin get the best of me. I repented and I let my life was saved, but I had to live the rest of my life with the consequences of a great sin. A courageous kid. One day, when I was about 10 years old, I was protecting my sheep as they peacefully grazed when a man named Samuel strolled to Bethlehem. He invited my dad Jesse to a sacrifice. He announced, "I will anoint one of your sons to be the next king." When my brothers lined up, God told Samuel none of these were the one. That's when I saw a servant run to me and remark, "An old man would like to speak with you." So I rushed and I exclaimed, "I am here." Samuel announced, "He is the one." And I was anointed to me as a king. The current king, Saul, was often angry, so I was called to play the harp for him. He felt better and wanted me to live in the castle and play for him often. When I visited my brothers on the battle line, a colossal man named Goliath of Gath exclaimed to us, "If one person can kill me, we will become your slaves. But if that I kill that man, you will become our slaves." I pressed forward, and the king and I vowed, "I will advance to kill Goliath." The king questioned, "How? You are just a kid." I declared, "My God will protect me from him, just like he did with the lion and the bear." I I dashed to the river, collected 5 stones, and hustled to the battle line to meet Goliath. When I arrived, he bellowed, "Do you come with me with a stick? Am I a dog?" I answered him, "I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel that you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head." Goliath ran at me. I put a stone in my sling, and I sent it flying. It hit him directly in the head. God's army ran and pursued the Philistines. I jumped on Goliath. I pulled his sword out, and I sliced his head off. Then I brought it to the king in victory. I was such a courageous kid. Already anointed to be the king, I was not ready to be a great king and a victorious king, and there was still a king on the throne. I ran to King Saul for 10 to 15 years, but when I heard about his death, I was so distraught that I started to cry. I was anointed over Judah, and within 2 years, I finally ruled over all Israel. King Hiram of Tyre sent cedar logs and stonemasons from 200 miles away to build me a great palace. When I defeated the Moabites, I saved the life of every third person. I was considerably kind to people, and that is what made that people naturally like me. I wrote most of the books of Psalms, and I prayed to God about every decision I wanted to make. And he answered me. I charged to Jerusalem, fought the Jebusites, and took over the city and called it my capital. I brought the Ark of God to Jerusalem and danced along with it, praising God. I prayed to God, thanked him for my victories and my officials. After that, the Ammonites waged war against the armies of Israel and the armies of the Lord God. I asked God, should I charge and fight? He encouraged, yes, go up. I intrepidly defeated the Ammonites. I was a great and victorious king for the first 15 years of my reign. And I loved the Lord more than I loved my own family. At one point, I greatly displeased the Lord. During the second half of my reign, I paid the consequences of my sin. It was spring, and all the kings were in battle. I sat on my couch, and I was so bored that I trotted up onto my roof. From there, I saw a woman who was so beautiful that I asked, "Who's that woman?" One of my advisors knew and explained, "She is Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." But I sent for her anyways because she was as stunning as a San Diego sunset. I committed adultery with her, and later she sent me word that I am pregnant. So I sent for Uriah her husband, and he appeared. I made him drunk, and I encouraged, "Stumble home to be with your wife." The next morning, he was on the steps of my palace, and I admonished, "Why are you here?" He defended, My friends are in battle, but I sleep with my wife, not so." I told him, "Give Joab a letter," and the letter carried his own death sentence. Joab put him on the front line, and Uriah was killed. After mourning, I took Bathsheba as my wife, and she gave birth to our son. A prophet named Nathan delivered a rebuke to me. "God is angry because you have sinned against the Lord. Here are your consequences. Number 1, somebody is always going to kill someone else in your family. Number 2, I'll give 10 of your wives to your son. Number 3, your firstborn son will die, and your new baby will die." I realized what I had done, and I apologized. I had sinned against the Lord. Nathan agreed, but he comforted, "You will not die." When he left, I cried out to the Lord, "I am so remorseful for what I had done. I repented of my sin." I wrote Psalms 51 as a prayer to God for mercy on me. When I was nearing the end of my life, the Lord told me that my son Solomon was going to be the next king. I was 70 years old when I died. God forgave me for my sin, but I had lived the rest of my life knowing that the damaging things happening in my family were because I had sinned against the Lord. I was primarily an important shepherd boy who loved my sheep. I would kill a bear and a lion to save them. I was a righteous, noble, and victorious king who was one of the greatest kings that ever lived. I was also a fallen man who let my greed for women ruin the rest of my life. The most important thing about me is that I loved the Lord and God loved me like a son. I was absolutely a courageous kid who grew up to be a conquering king. Who am I? Yes, Hazel. Yes.
King David. And what is your centerpiece? Go back to the microphone.
My centerpiece is the sword and the slingshot over there.
And
the David statue.
The David statue. Very good. Awesome. All right. So let's stand up. Move to the left. Very nice. So our next up is Aislinn Neal. And she don't really have a birth date, but we put her around 800 BC. She is the daughter of Stephanie Neal.
The most confident goddess. I was one of the most prominent women in Greek mythology. I was an outstanding goddess who took charge of war, wisdom, and the useful arts. Intriguing stories of my brilliant weaving competitions and battles with sinister monsters demonstrate my wisdom and bravery. Because I was very popular throughout the world, a superbly stunning statue was erected in my honor. Because of all these legends and accomplishments, it is no wonder I was such a confident and well-known goddess. My birth was very unusual. Before I was born, my family was known as the most powerful gods and goddesses in Greece. They decided to fashion a home for themselves on the highest mountain in Greece. After they built the city, they called themselves the Olympians. My father, who was the leader of the Olympians, married my mother, Metis, the first goddess of wisdom. My grandmother, Rhea, cautiously warned him, "If Metis has a child who is a son, he will grow up to be more powerful than you." He didn't know if I would be a girl or a boy, but he was concerned about what his mother had told him. Because of his concern, Father played a trick on my mother. They played a game where they took turns changing into different animals. When Mother turned herself into a fly, Father quickly turned himself back into a god and swallowed her. Awkwardly, while Mother was inside Father's belly, I was born. Using her powers, Mother fashioned clothes for me and made me magnificent armor. Because she was working so intensely at the armor inside Father's head, he began to experience a ruthless, relentless headache. It hurt so terribly that he asked his brother to split his head open and find the reason for the horrific pain. Once his head was split open, I emerged fully grown and clothed in majestic armor. Unfortunately for Mother, Father's head miraculously closed before she could escape. However, Father ecstatically welcomed me to Mount Olympus. He was relieved that I was a girl, and therefore no longer felt threatened by me. I was known for demonstrating incredible wisdom. Because of this, my symbols are the owl and the olive tree. Historically, owls have represented wisdom. The olive tree stems from a fable about an ancient competition, which I won using my incredible wisdom. Poseidon, who is the god of the sea, and I both wanted to rule over a stunning city in Greece. Father challenged us in a competition.
Whoever gave the most useful gift to the city would take over as the new ruler. Poseidon gave the city a sparkling, salty stream. Though it was beautiful, it wasn't very useful because. Where am I? I've lost my place. Though it was beautiful, it wasn't very useful because the people could not drink its salty water. I, however, did something that was quite impressive. I pointed my finger at the ground, and a plant started to grow vigorously. It got taller and taller. Once it had finished growing, it towered over the city, and everyone saw that it was a bountiful olive tree. Because of its impressive usefulness, Father immediately announced that I was the winner and named the city after me, Athens. He also erected a stunningly gorgeous temple in my honor. It is called Parthenon. I was known as the goddess of useful arts and was respected by many for my devotion to my people. I was talented at weaving beautiful artwork and inventing many useful items, such as chariots, ships, farming tools, and musical instruments. I was a fierce protectress of my people, and many of my creations and inventions were results of my loyalty to them. One famous legend that demonstrates these qualities is that of Arachne in the weaving competition. A well-known Olympic weaver named Arachne challenged me to a weaving duel. My weaving included gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus, who were depicted as very powerful and strong. Arachne's work shamefully displayed the gods and goddesses as fools and clowns. I was furious because Arachne's work mocked my family. How dare she? I tore her loom apart, destroyed her artwork, and turned her into an ugly spider. This way, she would still be able to show off her talents of weaving, but would no longer mock my family. I demonstrated great compassion for my people, but I would not allow my family to be mocked or threatened in any way. My fierce protecting qualities and devotion to my people lead me to be an admirable warrior. One legend that demonstrates this is the story of Medusa, who was once my priestess. She fell tragically in love with the god of the sea, Poseidon, even though she had promised her loyalty to me. Because she was unfaithful, I turned her into a hideous monster with snakes for hair. Years later, I helped a Greek hero named Perseus defeat Medusa for good. I provided him with weapons and wisdom to defeat her. When Perseus got to Medusa's cave, he heard hissing all around him. Suddenly, right in front of him, was Medusa. He closed his eyes as quickly as he could, because I had warned him, if you look at Medusa's face, you will turn to stone. Slash! Perseus cut off her head using the sword I had fashioned for him. As a symbol of gratitude for my help and wisdom, he gifted me Medusa's head, which I turned into a cape for myself. Zeus also gifted me with the Aegis shield, which showed Medusa's head on the front, and was a symbol of my great heroism in defeating the sinister monster once and for all. I am still remembered today as one of the most famous goddesses in history. My contributions to the areas of wisdom, useful arts, and warfare are still remembered and appreciated in society today. I was an incredibly impressive goddess who was very wise, loyal, and amazingly ingenious. Because of all these the things I was credited for, it is no wonder I was considered one of the most confident goddesses of all time. Who am I? Lydia. No. Emma. Yes, I am Athena. My centerpiece is the one in the back, and you can kind of see it sticks up. It's an olive tree.
And an owl. Yay! Very nice. So, Goddess Athena, that's awesome. So we've successfully gotten 9 of these done before our intermission. And because Lucy went first, we're going to bump William to the second half on your program. So let's take a little break. I need my students to come gather on the stairs. We're going to take our group picture at intermission so we don't have to do that afterwards. And you're welcome to stretch and mingle. There are bathrooms this direction out through the hallway and bathrooms this direction. So if my students will come over here to the stage, we'll get a nice picture. No.
Yeah, the Bethlehem thing was kind of.
Hello? Hey, it actually works.
My name is Bob.
Actually, I'm next, but. You're stepping on my.
Yo, somebody's stepping on my cake.
You stepping on me.
Mom told me to give it to you. Take it.
We will be doing refreshments at the end of the program, not now. Kids are wondering. Okay, intermission's over, boys. No sword fights during intermission. Can we come have a seat, please? Y'all come back. Find your seat. Please come find your seat, boys and girls. Y'all did a beautiful job so far. We've got 9 nervous students left, or not. They might just be ready. All right, have a seat. Very exciting. All righty. Very good. You don't have anybody in the nursery? Well, you're welcome to stay or go home. Okay, awesome. But you did the first half, is this correct? You had kids the first half? Yes, so now all the little guys get to go home. Isn't that nice at intermission? That really worked. I got some people saying they loved having intermission. Very fun. All righty. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to get started with our second half of the program. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Next up, William Lohman is the son of Brian and Emily Lohman, and his character was born around 590 BC.
The Anointed King. This is what the Lord... The Anointed King. This is what the Lord says to his anointed, whose right hand I take hold of, to subdue nations before him, and to strip kings of their armor, to open doors before him, so that gates will not be shut. I will go before you, and will level the mountains. I will break down gates of bronze, and cut through bars of iron. I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name, and bestow on you a title of honor, though you do not acknowledge me. Isaiah 45, 1-4. I was the anointed king, who was prophesied about 150 years prior to my birth, chosen to carry out God's purposes on this earth. I was protected from my birth. I was protected from infant death. God summoned me, although I was not of Jewish descent, to set the captives free, conquer new lands, and become a tolerant and benevolent ruler. My life is a testament to how God can use a pagan king for his purposes. Long ago, before the time of Christ, there reigned an odious king who ruled his people viciously. In a dream, he envisioned that I, his unborn grandson, would become one of the most momentous kings in the history of the world. Prior to my birth in 590 BC, King Astyages secretly plotted to have me assassinated. The king commanded his closest advisor, Harpagus, to take me into the Persian mountains and slay me there, leaving my infant body to be consumed by wild animals. The Lord spurred compassion in Hipparchus, who faked my death and killed a sheep instead. Wiping the blood on his hands, he returned to the king, claiming to have finished the despicable, dreadful deed, when in fact he had given me to a shepherd and his wife to raise as their own son. At the age of 10, I was selling sheep in the marketplace when my grandfather recognized me as his grandson. Angered, the king invited his advisor to a banquet where they feasted on Harpagus' son. Upon finding out what the king had done, Harpagus fled to the mountains. I, on the other hand, was allowed to return to the home of my parents. In 558 BC, I was crowned king of Persia. Immediately following my coronation, Harpagus and I led a successful revolt against my grandfather. The expansion of my kingdom began as I seized control over the Median Empire. exactly as the vicious king Astyages had envisioned 20 years prior. After defeating King Astyages, I began my rule as king of the Archimedean Empire. Compelled by the God of Israel to conquer more territories, I sought to expand my empire to the four corners of the world, beginning with the affluent country of Lydia, which was ruled by King Croesus. My battle strategy was this: horses despised camels. Lydia's army rode horses, Persian soldiers rode camels. When the battle commenced, horses were thrown into confusion. Consequently, Lydian soldiers were trampled by their own horses, causing the defeat of the entire army in 547 BC. The Lord stirred up my spirit within me to continue towards the vast land of Babylon, which was an influential city containing tremendous beauty and wealth. Since the Babylonians were dissatisfied with their king, I was able to defeat their army quickly in 539 BC. Instead of engaging in combat, they actually opened the gates for me. Once I had defeated the Babylonian king, I restored the hanging gardens and the temples, treating the citizens with kindness and respect. I supported the local customs. The Jews had been slaves to King Nabonidus for many decades. After the defeat of Babylon, I set them free from captivity, allowing them to return to their homeland with vessels of treasure and wealth. The Lord gave me the kingdoms of the earth and charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem. Therefore, I supplied the wealth and materials for the Jewish temples to be rebuilt upon their return to their homeland. God's hand was upon my conquest, and I became known as the most benevolent ruler of my time. My empire stretched from the Andes River to Asia Minor. I had captured the four corners of the world. Although I was the ruler of the largest empire ever known, I desired to rule my empire peacefully. In 530 BC, Persian shepherds were constantly under attack by the notoriously nasty nomads of the north, which were ruled by the vicious Queen Tamiris. Traveling to the borders of my empire with the vast Persian army, I ventured to protect the shepherds. Queen Tamiris sent me a letter warning against attacking her lands, suggesting that I peacefully abandon my pursuits for the welfare of myself and my empire. Disregarding her threats, I crossed the Araxes River into nomadic territory. In the first battle, I captured the queen's only son, who killed himself while in captivity. This enraged the queen. Ruthlessly, she released the fury of her whole army upon mine, slaying me in battle. After the war, legends say that the queen brutally mutilated my body and used my head as a drinking glass. Although the Persian army lost this battle in which I perished, the empire continued to expand under the rule of my son. At my death, at age of 70, I left a legacy as the most benevolent ruler of my time. Throughout my life, my purposes were designed by God. Clearly, his hand was upon me. He protected me from infant death. He led me through each conquest and was with me even to the end of my life. The prophecy that Isaiah told about me 150 years prior to my birth led me to become a legendary ruler who rules his people with tolerance and dignity. I was the anointed king. Who am I? Yep, David? Yes. My centerpiece is the Cyrus, it's a cylinder made out of clay over there on top of the a map that I drew of the empire that I conquered.
Yay! King Cyrus the Great. That's awesome. Thank you, William. Okay, everyone stand up. Move to your left. You getting the hang of this? And next up is Elizabeth Stadig. She is the daughter of Paul and Lauren Stadig, and her character was born around 530 BC.
A life of bravery. During the Greco-Persian Wars, I, a woman warrior, impressed the king with my stunning battle tactics. My life, my leadership, and my legendary death successfully made me a famous woman of history. I was a Persian ruler, a strong leader, and a brave fighter. I was named after a Greek goddess, and I lived circa 530 to 460 BC. I rightfully inherited the throne from my dead husband because my son was too young to rule. I was born in Halicarnassus, which is in Caria. Caria was in the Persian Empire in present-day Turkey. During the Persian War, I was an ally to the Persian king Xerxes. I was an adept planner and a brave warrior. Herodotus, a Greek historian, recorded my story. Accurately, he described me as strong and brave. I'm most famous for the Battle of Salamis, which took place in 480 BC. Xerxes hated the Greeks and declared war. He asked my advice about whether or not he should fight the Greeks in the Straits of Salamis, a waterway off the coast of Greece. Confidently, I responded no, but Xerxes decided to fight anyway. Xerxes chose me to be a naval commander. I was the only woman to fight. The Greeks were terrified of me and wanted to take me prisoner. I fought for King Xerxes even though I thought the battle was an awful idea. I brought 5 ships to embarrass the Greeks. A Greek ship chased me. I was trapped. I cunningly switched my Persian flag for a Greek one and rammed another Persian ship. This tricked the Greek ship and it stopped the pursuit. Xerxes was impressed by my actions. He exclaimed, "My men have become women and my women men." The Greeks won, and again Xerxes asked for my advice about what to do next. I advised him to leave Greece and end the war. My actions in this battle made me famous. My death is a legend. After the war, I fell in love with a prince. He rejected my love. In despair, I tragically jumped into the sea and drowned. The legend of my mysterious death leaves people intrigued. My life was momentous. My confidence in battle impressed King Xerxes. Although my death is a legend, I'm still remembered as an important woman of history. Who am I? I am Artemisia I of Caria. And my centerpiece is the map of Greece with the ships over there.
Good job. Very good. Okay. Forgetting my cheat notes. Okay, everyone stand up. Move to the left. And next up is Wesley Claire Novotny. She's the daughter of Chris and Whitney Cole Novotny. And her character was born around 492 BC.
Hidden is how I began, but shining bright is how I endured. I was raised in the land of Persia, grew as a young lady within the walls of the palace, then rose into a shining star. This is how my story begins. In the land of Persia, where I was raised, King Xerxes was throwing a massive party and wanted to show off his radiant queen, Vashti. When she refused his request, he banished her. Xerxes was advised to have all beautiful young girls come to the palace in Susa. After months of preparations, they would be presented to him, and King Xerxes would choose a new queen. To my uncle Mordecai's terror, I was sent. He insisted that my Jewish heritage be kept hidden while I was in the palace, and that I go by a name that sounded Persian. Mordecai also told me to stay away from the king's top advisor, Haman. Haman hated my uncle because he would not bow to him, and therefore hated all Jews. I agreed to stay hidden and trust in God. Within the walls of the palace, I was treated more favorably than the other young ladies. When it was my turn to be presented to the king, he amazingly chose me to be his queen. My life changed instantly. My uncle came to the palace gate often to check on me. One day while I was there, Mordecai overheard 2 guards discussing a plan to kill the king. He got a message to me, and I revealed the truth about the murder's plan and how Mordecai had saved the king's life. It became part of the royal record. Meanwhile, Haman still expected all people to bow to him, and Mordecai would not. This was dangerous. Haman had power and used it for evil to convince the king that some people were after his throne. Haman wanted them dead, so Xerxes agreed to his wicked plan. A decree was sent out that on the 13th day of Adar, all Jews must die. Devastated, Mordecai and the Jews prayed to God for help. He quickly sent word to me to encourage me that I was queen for such a time as this. I would not escape being killed, since I was also Jewish. I was afraid, but asked for prayer and fasting. Strolling up to King Xerxes without being summoned was dangerous, but revealing my true self was crucial. I might die if he does not extend the royal golden scepter in my direction. Thankfully, the gracious king did, and asked what I needed from him. I kindly invited King Xerxes and Haman to a banquet. He was pleased to come. My heart was pounding at the feast, and I was unable to reveal my hidden secret. I quickly thought to invite them again to another banquet the next evening. They agreed. That night, King Xerxes did not sleep well and asked for the royal record to be read to him. He had forgotten about Mordecai saving his life and asked if anything was ever done for him. When the answer was no, he insisted to ask Haman for an idea as soon as he awoke the next day. Haman pridefully thought the king wanted to honor him, so he gave a splendid idea to have the man paraded around on the king's horse, wearing a royal robe. Delighted, King Xerxes asked Haman to carry this parade for Mordecai. Stunned, Haman had to obey. Angered, he made a gallows to hang Mordecai on the moment the parade was over. That evening, I was ready to reveal my request. If it pleases the king, my life is in your hands. Let my life and the lives of my people be spared. The king was stunned. Who would dare to harm my wife? The wicked Haman, I courageously announced. As Haman realized that I was Jewish, he desperately tried to defend himself. Angry, the king left to think. When he returned, King Xerxes ordered Haman to be hung on the gallows constructed for Mordecai. Mordecai was then honored with Haman's old job and became a trusted advisor to the king. As my story ends for tonight, you must know that my Jewish name means hidden, while my Persian name means star. I was raised in Persia, grew up in the palace, and was revealed as a shining star. Hidden is how I began, but shining bright is how I endured. Who am I? Chloe. No. Well, technically, yes, but no. Eden. Yes.
Queen Esther. Very good. Wait.
And my centerpiece was the scepter and the basket with the little frame that said, for such a time as this.
Awesome. Thank you. Very good. Okay, stand up. Take a step to the left. Next up is Jack Spencer. Jack is the son of Rob and Kelly Spencer, and his character was born around 470 BC.
I was born long ago in ancient Greece. Okay. I was born long ago in ancient Greece. No one knows my birth date for certain, but historians estimate it was around 470 BC. I grew up during the golden age of Athens when Greece was very powerful. My family lived near Athens. My father was a stonemason and sculptor, and my mother was a midwife. Ours was not a very wealthy or noble family, but my father was well respected in Athens. I worked with my father as an apprentice and learned how to cut and shape stone. I forgot where I was. Okay. I even made a sculpture of the three graces on the Acropolis as an adult. Oh, the three graces on the Acropolis. As an adult, I had an odd appearance, and I wore simple, shabby clothes. I had no interest in money or material things, so I was content with little and could enjoy life more. Throughout my life, I felt that happiness does not come from having more, it comes from wanting less. This attitude helped me to be better prepared as a soldier. Because I could not miss rich food and drink, I could survive on very little. I was used to heat and cold and being uncomfortable. By this time, I was 40 years old. War had broken out between Athens and Sparta, the two most powerful Greek city-states in 431 BC. This was known as the Peloponnesian War. In spite of my age, I served as a Greek hoplite in at least 3 battles. Hoplites were the most important part of the Greek army. We were the infantrymen. We wore heavy armor and carried a shield and spear into the battle. In the first battle, I fought beside my young student, Alcibiades. Who later told how I saved his life when he was wounded. I probably asked lots of questions and got into many interesting discussions with other hoplites. After the war, I was able to focus on what I really loved, philosophy. I declared that all I know is that I know nothing, nothing at all, nada, nope, nothing. And I spent my whole life asking questions. Though I had many followers, I did not let anyone call me a teacher. Groups of men would follow me and listen to me speak, but I would never take money from any of them. I learned and gained wisdom by asking questions and arguing with people. I spent my days walking in the streets of Athens talking to people, speaking with men from all the walks of life. I had changed false beliefs people had about things like justice, love, and courage. I would break down their ideas and help them find a better way to think about these things. I believed this was what philosophy was all about. And that questioning was the only way to become a true philosopher. Though I had many students, I did not teach them anything specific. I wanted them to learn how to decide what they truly believed. To do this, they needed to understand their own feelings and beliefs. This is why I asked so many questions. To help people think through a problem and find the truth. Today, people have named this method of teaching after me, and it is still used in many schools. You even use it here in classical conversations. Actually, I haven't heard of them use it, but I'm guessing they do. I never wrote anything myself, so everything people know about me is learned from others who knew me and wrote about me. Plato was probably my most well-known student. Oh, oops, I flipped to the wrong page. I flipped to the first one. Okay. He began writing some of our famous dialogues after I died. Most of what you know about me comes from Plato's writing, and from the writing of Xenophon and another one of my students. I made many enemies with my questioning of public men and criticism of public policies. I was accused of not worshiping the official gods of Athens and for corrupting the young men. But these were false charges. At my trial, I spoke in my own defense, which was recorded in Plato's dialogue, the Apology. The jury, which was composed of 500 men, found me guilty and sentenced me with a death penalty. I would not beg for my life, but I would submit to the laws of Athens, even if it was unjust in this case. I had always lived by the rules of Athens, and I knew I was not guilty of any crimes. I died in my jail cell by drinking a poison called hemlock. I was 70 years old when I died in 399 BC. I was the first great Greek philosopher, and I wanted to expose things and people for what they really were. I helped to shape other philosophers that came after me, including Plato and Aristotle. Great philosophers have used my method of asking questions to find the truth ever since I arrived on the scene. Many of my observations have been commonly repeated over thousands of years, and some of them are still used today. That spit in my mouth, so I stopped talking. You can see some of my quotes on my centerpiece, but perhaps one of my most famous lines is, the unexamined life is not worth living. Who am I? I don't know. Whoever wants to say it. Well, yeah, that's kind of obvious.
Your centerpiece is when you kicked the bucket? That's funny. I love the bald head. It's awesome. Very fun. Good job, Jack. Okay, everybody get up. Move to the left. Next up is Jackson Yoder. Jackson is the son of Kervin and Carly Yoder, and his character was born in 290 BC.
A brilliant man. Have you ever used pi to find the area of a circle? If so, you have inadvertently used one of the formulae that I have discovered. I was born around 287 BC in the city of Syracuse, which is on the island of Sicily. Some things I am known for are my mathematical formulae, ingenious inventions, and how to discover the density of an object. Adroitly, I discovered crucial mathematical formulae. Understandably, I frustrated mathematicians because I only gave the answer with no explanation. In 1906, John Helberg discovered a prayer book in Constantinople, Turkey. He was surprised to find that the material in the book had been erased for the prayers. The erased material, which happened to be the only surviving copy of my book, The Method, was a collection of all my mathematical formulae. I discovered pi, or 22/7, the circumference of a circle divided by the width. This number is important to find the area of a circle. I also utilized the area of a right triangle to calculate the area of a circle. Using pi, I also discovered how to calculate the complex problems of finding the volume and surface area of a sphere. Worldwide, the importance of my formulae are incredibly astounding since they are used daily in many professions. I was a clever inventor. I discovered that the number of pulleys was inadvertently related to the weight of an object being raised. Using this knowledge, I invented the claw, which is a claw-like weapon used to drag the bow of enemy warships out of the water, sinking them. Another invention attributed to me is the water screw, a screw inside a cylinder with a handle at the top. When the handle is turned, the screw inside is turned, leading to a continuous flow of water out the top. The water screw is still in use today. Arguably, one of the most exciting inventions of mine is the death ray. The death ray is carefully arranged curved mirrors that reflect sunlight into a set point, creating intense heat. The Syracuse Army implemented this technology to burst Roman warships into flames. Clearly, I was the instigator of many ingenious ideas. I also discovered that the density of an object is equal to water displacement, even though the weight may be different. This discovery came by in the following manner. Desiring to have a crown made for himself, King Hiero carefully weighed the gold before giving it to the goldsmith to make the crown. When the intelligent king got back his crown, he was suspicious that the goldsmith had mixed silver with his gold and kept some of the gold himself. Indeed, it was the same weight as the lump of gold. Still suspicious, he asked me to help. solve the mystery. I was puzzled for a long time. One day, while I was taking the bath, I realized that my body displayed the exact amount of water as my body density. Realizing this would help me, I breathlessly bolted out of the bath, bounding down the streets naked, bawling, "Eureka!" which means, "I have it," in ancient Greek. Using this knowledge to prove that even though the crown and the lump of gold were the same weight, they displaced a different amount of water, proving that the crown was partially made from a different metal that had a different density. I was killed when the Roman army invaded Syracuse. The Roman army was instructed to peacefully capture me alive. Deeply engrossed in my studies, I did not know the city had fallen. When the Roman soldiers burst into my room, I refused to leave my work. Growing impatient with me, a soldier drew his sword and killed me. A sphere and a cylinder were symbols of my discoveries were carved into my tombstone. I discovered many mathematical formulae that are still being used today. Using those mathematical principles to make clever inventions, I enabled my city to defend itself. I was also able to find the density of an object is equal to water displacement. My greatest contribution to the world was my mathematical formulae, which are still used worldwide today. Truly, I was a brilliant man. Who am I? David? Yes.
Archimedes, very good. And what was your centerpiece?
My centerpiece is a sphere and a cylinder.
A sphere and a cylinder. Yay. Good job, Jackson. Thank you. Okay. All right, everyone move over. Ella Parker is next. Ella is the daughter of Sam and Anita Parker, and her character was born only 69 years before Christ.
I was born in 69 BC in Alexandria, and I was raised during the unstable time of Egypt. I'm actually a Greek. Thanks to Alexander the Great, our family, the Ptolemy dynasty, ruled over Egypt since then. I grew up a life of luxury, I had an appetite for learning, and I spoke 10 languages. I had a beautiful view of the famous lighthouse called the Pharaohs, which was colossal. My Egypt was beautiful. I became the Queen of Egypt when I was only 15 years old, and it was not easy. I had a daring life of fighting for the throne, meeting Caesar, and commanding a fleet in the Battle of Actium. Egypt was blessed by a natural beauty, resources, and people. Unfortunately, Egyptian army was weak. We could not stand against outside threats or even handle our own riots. So Egypt relied on Rome. As such, my grandfather made awful deals with Rome, and we were in debt. My father was an unfit ruler. He fled and left us to fight for the throne for 6 years. I knew our dynasty was losing power. In effort, I bring the stability and power. I reluctantly married my brother and became joint ruler. It was custom at the time. We did not get along, and civil war broke out. Fortunately, I survived with Caesar's help. I remained as the Queen of Egypt. Egypt was wealthy, but my country was weak and unstable. Caesar was my solution. We had both an ambition to rule the world. He was the most powerful commander, and I had the title and wealth. Caesar enjoyed his visit to Alexandria. He met scholars and astronomers. He was memorized by my intelligence and wit. He even built a statue of me in the Roman temple. Sadly, my Caesar was assassinated by his own men in 44 BC because his men was furious and felt threatened by me. I ruled alone for the next 3 years in Egypt. It was time of peace, and people adored me. I knew we needed a strong military support to keep Egypt's independence. Antony came to my political side and caused a divide in Rome. In 31 BC, the Battle of Actium took place in the Ionian Sea. I led a fleet of battle in Actium to help, but Antony's men abandoned us. It was a bloodshed war, and we did not win. Anthony fled back to Egypt, and I went hiding, planning my next move. Anthony heard a rumor that I was dead and stabbed himself in grief. A servant girl witnessed this and brought Anthony to my arms to die. Without Anthony, I had no political or military support. I knew we had lost, and I refused to be taken prisoner. I took my own life in 30 BC. I was 38 years old. My ambition to restore Egypt's glory did not come true, yet I am remembered by my influence over Roman leaders. I am the last pharaoh of ancient Egypt and one that history cannot forget. Who am I? Yes.
Ella, do you have a centerpiece? Oh, you just told us. A pyramid. Very good. Thank you, Ella. All righty. Everyone stand up. Scoot to the left. Next up is Jamarian Miller. Jamarian is the son of Trell and Cynthia Miller, and his character was born in 63 BC.
Transforming Rome. I feel like a beetroot. Even though I had some unique sayings, I transformed the Roman Empire and impacted the world. I lived from 63 BC to AD 14. My parents were Gaius Octavius and Asia. Unfortunately, my father died when I was only 16. My uncle took me into his family. No, not 16. My father died when I was 4 years old, but my uncle took me into his family. I was involved in a Civil War campaign when I was only 16. I changed my name when I was 18. I like staring people down with my bright, shining eyes. I was actually short and walked with a limp. My simple life included a diet of plain, simple foods. I was kind and respectful to everyone. I am renowned for the way I transformed the empire. I completed my father's impressive building projects and gave money to all citizens. I was the emperor during the time of Jesus. I ended the civil wars and introduced the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. My reign lasted for 40 years. My transformation of the empire was the most significant accomplishment. Not only did I transform Rome, but I impacted the world. Who am I? Yes. And my centerpiece is the fish mosaic back there.
Very good. Awesome, Jamarian. Thank you. Okay, stand up. Move to the left. We've got 2 more students. Next up is Grace Bondaruc. She's the daughter of Mark. No. Daniel and, oh, I'm so sorry. Daniel and Luba Bondaruc. And Mark is here. That's the older brother who was in class with my son. That's, okay, I have no more apologies. You should not be nervous after that big kerfuffle. Grace Bondaruc's character was alive from 15 to 59 AD.
Fight for the power. I was born on November 6, 15 AD in what is now Cologne, Germany, but raised in Rome. I rose quickly into imperial politics. My mother was the great-granddaughter of the great Augustus. My father, Germanicus, was remembered as a great general in his years. I was the first daughter and 4th living child of Germanicus. I had 3 elder brothers, Nero Caesar, Drusus Caesar, and the future emperor Caligula, and 2 younger sisters, Julia Drusilla and Julia Livilla. As a small child, I traveled with my parents throughout Germany until me and my siblings returned to Rome to live and be raised by our maternal grandmother, Antonia. My parents departed for Syria in 18 AD to conduct official duties. On October of 19 AD, my father Germanicus died suddenly in Antioch, modern-day Turkey. After my 13th birthday, Emperor Tiberius, a long-distant relative, arranged for me to marry Domitius. On December 15, 37 AD, in the early morning in autumn, I gave birth to a son. Me and my husband named our son Lucius. His name was later later changed to Nero. My child would grow up to become the emperor. Three years later, Domitius died of a disease which is now known as oedema. My own brother Caligula became the new emperor. He started as a fair and wise ruler, but eventually something happened. People described him becoming mad with power, although much of this could have been propaganda meant to smear his reputation. So I took it upon myself, along with my sister and cousin, and became involved in a plot to assassinate Caligula, my brother. Unfortunately, he found out and had my cousin executed, and me and my sister exiled from Rome. We were only allowed to return after my brother had passed away. In 47 AD, Crispus, my second husband, died, and at his funeral the rumor spread around that I had poisoned Crispus to gain his estate. After being widowed a second time, I was left very wealthy. My uncle Claudius wanted to remarry for the fourth time. So when Claudius decided to marry me, he persuaded a group of senators that the marriage should be arranged in the public interest. In Roman society, an uncle marrying his niece was considered immoral. Claudius and I were married on New Year's Day, 49 AD. Our marriage caused widespread disapproval. This may have been a part of my plan to make my son Lucius the new emperor. My marriage to Claudius was not based on love, but on power. On the day I married Claudius as my third husband, his fourth wife, I became empress. I also was a stepmother to Claudia Antonia, Claudius' daughter and only child from his second marriage. I eliminated or removed anyone who I considered was a potential threat to my position or the future of my son. Soon after the death of my third husband, Nero was raised to emperor, and I was named priestess of the cult of the defied Claudius. I now attempted to use my son's youth to participate in the rule of the Roman emperor. In year 1 of Nero's reign, I guided my 17-year-old son in his rule, but started losing influence over Nero when he began to have an affair with the freed woman Claudius Este, which I strongly disapproved of and violently scolded him for. To get back at him for what he did, I began to support Britannicus, my late husband's third son, in my possible attempt to make him emperor or to threaten Nero. The panicking emperor decided on whether to eliminate his mother, me, or his stepbrother. Soon Nero had Britannicus secretly poisoned during his banquet in February 55 AD. The power struggle between me and my son had begun. Between 56 and 58 AD, I became very watchful and had a critical eye over my son. I was forced out of the palace by my own son to live in the imperial residence, but sadly our relationship grew more hostile, and Nero gradually deprived me of honors and powers. On March 19, 59 AD, I was invited to my son's celebration of his 22nd birthday. Naturally, I was thrilled and accepted it gratefully. As I was walking to the boat that would take me across the water to the celebration, someone told me Nero is having a trick set up just so my life would be taken. I thought about it, but denied that thought that my own son would do it, but traveled by land just to be safe. Me and Nero had a wonderful time, then walked together to a boat that I trusted and would have a ride. But before I left, Nero kissed me because he knew it would be the last time he would see me. As I was on the boat, Nero stayed on the shore. It began to leak, and instead of commotion, I was thrown overboard with my friend and beaten on the head with the oars. The sailors beaten us vigorously, but I survived, and sadly my friend died. After fighting against the waves, I finally swam to the shore and trotted to my home where I could eat and rest. After I sent word to my son that I am alive, he sent his soldier to me. When the soldier arrived, he struck me with a sword and I died. I lived and did all I could to have power. Was that the best choice I could have made? Who am I? I'm Agrippina the Younger. And my centerpiece is the one with the red mushrooms and the map and the golden rings.
Wonderful. Thank you, Grace. That was great. Okay, one more time. Everyone get up, move to the left. Last up is Levi Spencer. Levi is the son of Rob and Kelly Spencer, and his character was born around 280 AD. Yes, ma'am. Okay, yeah.
I was born on February 27th, but no one knows the year of my birth for sure. It could have been any point between 272 and 282 AD. My father was one of the 4 leaders of the Tetrarchy, which began in 286 AD. When Diocletian divided the Roman Empire, my father, Caesar of the Western Roman Empire, my father was, okay. But I was sent to be raised in the eastern part of the empire, far away from my parents. I was brought up in Diocletian's own imperial court, where I learned the craft and skills of a soldier. I was a junior officer in the army and recognized a promising young man and successful military tribune. The senior Augustus himself and Caesar, and when my father died of illness in 306 AD, Diocletian's plans for the Tetrarchy were not working out the way he had hoped. The other emperors were fighting terrible battles with one another to gain more power, but I was being more careful in carrying out military campaigns along the Rhine frontier and keeping out of the way of my rivals as they fought one another for power. In 312, it was time for the final battle of the campaign. I decided we must fight Maxentius because he wanted to control the Western Empire. I knew our chances were slim, and when we went into battle, there were around 100,000 men in Maxentius's army against just 20,000 in mine. We were badly outnumbered. On October 27th, the night before battle, I saw a vision of a cross in the sky, and that night God spoke to me in a dream and said, "In hoc signo vinces." In Latin, this means conquer by the sign. I prayed to God for help in battle and had my men make banners that displayed the cross of Christ. We carried these banners before us into battle, knowing God was on our side. On October 28th, 312, we marched into Rome. We met Maxentius and his army at the Milvian Bridge, a stone bridge that crossed the Tiber River into Rome. My army proved to be stronger while trying to escape. Maxentius's army realized they were too close to the river to regroup, and when they tried to get back across the river, their boats broke apart and many men disappeared into the water. Those still on shore were either captured or killed. Even Maxentius died drowning in the river while trying to escape. I entered Rome October 29th singing to God, the ruler and victor, as I entered in triumph. We had won the battle with God's help. The people accepted me, and the Senate of Rome voted me Augustus, Maximus, and Master of the West, Licinius, sole emperor in the East, wanted to defeat I wanted to defeat him and take back the eastern territories and control the Roman Empire. So in 324, I fought against Licinius near the ancient Greek city of Byzantium. I led an attack by night, and though we were outnumbered once again, my army prevailed, and the enemy fled. I won the battle, uniting the Roman Empire once again under one emperor. Before my reign, most people were pagan and worshipped the Roman gods. Diocletian carried out very cruel and violent persecution against Christians, burning scriptures, smashing churches, disbanding meetings, and arresting priests. However, after my vision at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, I knew my good fortune was due to my faith and loyalty to the Christian God. In 313, I issued the Edict of Milan, a law that made it illegal to persecute or mistreat Christians. While I didn't make Christianity the official religion, I did make it much more accepted than it had been before. In 325, I gathered all the bishops of the empire to the Council of Nicaea, where they wrote the Nicene Creed. I built hundreds of new churches throughout the empire and made changes to try to improve the economy, including illustrating a new social and economic system called feudalism. I wanted to build a new capital closer to the middle of the empire so I can choose Byzantium, So I chose Byzantium, the ancient Greek city where I had won the battle over Licinius, and renewed the Roman Empire. I renamed it Constantinople. My creed was one God, one Lord, one faith, one church, one empire, one emperor. I trusted and followed God into battle and humbled myself and my troops in prayer. And I died in 337 and divided the empire among these three sons. I was far from a righteous and sinless leader, but God used me to deliver Christians from persecution and advance the cause of Christianity. My decisions to fight under the banner of the Christian cross and victory at the Milvian Bridge paved the way for Christianity to become the main religion of the Roman Empire and ultimately of Europe, changing the course of history. Who am I? William. Yes. And my centerpiece is the sword and the shield and the picture of the vision of the cross.
Yay! Wonderful. I think we finished in record time. I just can't believe, right? Two things before we go. These students have worked so hard. Their costumes are amazing, and their papers were so riveting. I really enjoyed every single one. Let's stand up and face the audience. We'll give you one last round of applause. Yeah, what about singing happy birthday? Okay, let's bow our heads. Thank you, Lord. We thank you just for all these men and women in our history that we can look up to. We can learn from their leadership, from the things that went really well, the ways that you bless them, and we can also learn from their mistakes. I pray, Lord, that you will bless these students as they continue to grow up, and that they would continue to grow closer to you. And I thank you for these families and the support that we have from friends and relatives. I ask that you'll bless us as we go. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so we are going to go through the line. The students are going to get their snacks first. And then we're just going to mingle and hang out and chat with each other. And if any of our families can stay and help us put it back together. We're going to give it about 20 minutes before we